All right, so adding texture to your creature. I've started in and I have some places I want to show you how I'm going to proceed and some areas that I'm going to correct. So I started this piece by adding the black. So I added the black for his little tentacles, the end of his butt there, the feet across there. I decided with my creature, I wanted some black down here, black of the eye, and the black of the teeth. I'm going to leave the teeth white against that black mouth to let it pop out. Now, texture is also value. I think you can start to see that happening in this piece. I have a much darker value at the top and a lighter value at the bottom. I have a lighter value out here, a darker value here, a darker value here. This is slightly darker than this is. So I've got 3 or 4 different values happening in my piece. I started by, after the blacks, I started adding texture right in through here. I looked at one of the Zentangle images, I believe, in the image galleries for the Zentangle, and I just had fun sort of using that as my starter idea for that area. I then decided to go to the bear. The bear has really divided the body into different areas. So it's nice when you've got some divisions going on because you can then use different textures throughout instead of covering it with one whole texture. So I like the idea that was already with the bear almost a sense of like a collar. And I picked that up in my piece. So he's got kind of a collar. There was the upper leg and then the lower leg, and they were kind of subdivided. So I went ahead and subdivided that more, which ended up making sort of this breast area, the front chest area. And then I have the lower legs, which are kind of spread out, and I'm thinking about them as one thing, this pant, this pant, this pant, and up and through here. There was also a bit of a mane on here, so I've got that textured in. So I started up here, so I did this dark area, and then I knew I wanted to have a lighter area here. So you can see I'm using a much more open texture at the bottom. So I have a light on the top and a dark on the top and a lighter on the bottom. I then went up and through here. Now, I wanted to talk to you about something first. So in applying textures, you can take any shape that you have, the creature shape, like a leg or a head or the body, and you can apply the texture in different ways. You can apply it so the texture just goes horizontal to each other, and that makes a more flat 2D effect. If you want something that looks a little bit more 3D, I start off making some pencil lines across here, and then I will start to play with the texture within those guidelines. So I'm going to make this one easy. So let's say I'm going to make these like kind of ellipse shapes. So remember that up on the top part of this, they're going to be at their largest, and they are going to be more spaced apart. Remember, as they go around the side, they're going to start to get thinner and closer together, kind of like fence posts maybe, right? And do you see how that creates that feeling of it going around? Let's do that same just easy mark on this one, and you'll be able to see that I'm doing this fast and sloppy. This feels flat where this feels 3D. On this one, I wanted to make it feel like not only did it go this way, but it also went around kind of like a turtle shell, I guess. This is basically like the flattest area in through here. And this will be starting to go down. At first I do my marks, which help me understand where these my marks are going to lie. So these are going to be going in rather than straight across to each other because they're going down. So these are the ones that are going to be farthest apart. And then as they start to go to the side again, we're getting them closer together until they're finally apart. So closer together, almost touching across there. So you can see the difference between the three of them. This very 2D, this 3D, this 3D. You do not, one is not better than another. You do not have to do your whole creature in any one of these. I am mixing it up. I talked about this one. If you look at the circles on here, they're flat circles. There's nothing, you remember how circles will start to become ellipses as they turn a surface? These are not, they're completely flat. This is completely flat across here. They just kind of work sideways. This is completely flat across here. On the collar area, can you see how I made the lines go around the form? And the textures also circles to ellipses across here. They change as they go around the surface. So, and in this area, you can see how I made lines that come around the form. I'm still not finished with this one. Let me get this last one in. So see how that comes around? So this is a pretty easy, that one's the very thin one. That's better. And I'm thinking about this little squiggle line. I do my first big major squiggle, and then I come back in and add a few more squiggles. And then I've got this last one across here, the top of the leg. And see how the leg starts to feel three-dimensional. You can see on this one, I decided to, rather than rule the lines this way, they're bigger in the front and smaller towards the side. And then I've got the lines that come out across the foot. So those are going to be my guidelines for the texture I'll put on the legs. I also have decided I want to have the head look three-dimensional. So I am wrapping, if you can see this kind of a line here that I'm using. Here's the top of the head, here's the side of the head, here's the bottom of the neck, here's the bottom of the neck across here. So when I apply my texture, I'll be following those lines to get that texture to wrap around the head. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with the lips yet. I did a little bit on the ear. I have some stippling and a few hash marks across here, but I got to decide what to do with the ears in through there. Now, when you get to an area like a head, I know you're feeling like, oh my God, I don't want to screw up. I've done this gorgeous drawing so far. There's a couple things you can do. I have a printer and a scanner in my house, so I just took my drawing and just put this area, basically, held it down on my scanner, and now I have a drawing that I can play with if I want to. If I'm feeling a little scared, I can pencil in my texture, or where my texture will follow, I should say. And then I can play with adding textures on here first before I go to this one. I also want to mention I do not draw out all of these textures and then pencil them in. That will take you forever. I basically, if I want to have some guidelines about how I'm going to wrap that out, that's the only thing I'm going to pencil in. After that, like these squiggly, spermy areas, there was no outlining there. Those are flat in through here. This is flat across here. I just started making the little dots and with a squiggle at the end. This texture, when I first started, I had just decided on putting scallops in like this across the chest. And I found that it was too light. So we talk about these textures having value too. It was just too light in there. I needed something darker. So I took a bigger pen, and what I decided to do was fill in inside here so it looks like each scale has a white outline around it. Do a few more. I'm also being very fast and sloppy about how I'm applying this. If you look at my drawing, I think you can see there I'm pretty careful about how I put it down, following edges. I want to make it nice and clean. So this now gives me a darker texture to work from, which is what I have here. It looks like I have white lines on a black ground. There are tons of great ideas for textures, a variety of textures. If you look in the image gallery, there is a whole image gallery of texture samples right now. There's also a bunch of images of previous student drawings. You can look at those for texture ideas. Those are also really good to help you figure out the next steps here, which is, all right, I'm almost finished with my creature. I need to have texture everywhere. And I need to figure out what I want to do with that border area. So I decided on just 2 leaves. I'm going to have one popping out over here, one popping out over here. And I need to decide what I'm going to do for textures on the leaf and on the background. I do have the option, if I want, of making the leaves just flat black if I want to, and putting some texture in the background, or making the background flat black and putting some texture on the leaves. So that will be my next step. So here's my finished drawing. I want to remind you to be careful. It's different working at home than in the studio. I've had this out just in my living room, and last night I dropped a bottle of water, and I don't know how it missed my drawing. Otherwise, I would be showing you a disaster pool of ink this morning. So I think this is now finished. I want to show you what I'm looking at when I decide it's finished. So remember over here I said that there was a mark that I didn't want. I had forgotten to follow this edge. I am using this whiteout as my whiteout. I like this a lot better than the liquid stuff because the liquid stuff just gets all clumpy. So with this one, you just have to somehow drag this along here. And I don't know if you can see that, but it leaves a a film of white and covers up pretty neatly. It's dry. You can work back into it right away. Very convenient. So there are areas you might be able to see it in this light. Around here, I had to fix, where else? Here, which doesn't even show. Oh, I had to fix here. This is where a few of the water droplets from my water hit this. I decided on the background, just kind of, I didn't know what to do. First, I put in the stems for the leaves, and I liked that. And it was clear to me once this was in that I had to leave this white or I was going to lose the creature. So then it was, what do I do with background? So I thought maybe I'll do black onto here and then stippling into white up and through here. But I thought, maybe that's going to be too much. So I thought, well, I could put these sort of indication of, I don't know, rain, these little droplet things. And I thought, okay, heavier down here, lighter up here. If I did go back and decide to make this black, it wouldn't be such a big deal. And I decided in these little circly things to leave just a little bit of white showing, so it almost looks like drops of water, I think. Not quite, but it's okay. It makes for a nice backdrop. And I decided again to leave this darker, to make this pop out here and let it be lighter. You notice also I decided not to put a border around it, not to put a line. And I didn't decide that till the very end. Once I had the drops in, I erased out the graphite line. And I thought, oh, that's really nice. I can clearly see the rectangle without having to draw the rectangle. And I like that. I like the way the creature spreads across my format and is up nice and tall. I really am happy with this decision to put that leaf on. I feel like this composition kind of comes in and just spreads out into 3 arms, which I am pretty pleased with. I like the texture that happened on the head. I was working on keeping it fairly light. I don't know that it looks completely 3-dimensional, but I'm okay with that. I've got some areas that feel more 3-dimensional, and I think it works really well. The outline. At the end, I don't know if you noticed this from the last video, but I thickened this outline because I felt like I wanted that creature to pop out a little bit more. And a heavier outline separates it from the background so that I feel like it's sitting out a little bit more, and it's pretty satisfying. I put a little bit of shadow with stippling under here to help the creature sit on the leaf. I think it's okay. Maybe I didn't need it, but I don't think that it takes anything away. And again, I'm looking at the balance of white, grays, and blacks. So again, we've got that black, 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 blacks up and through here, which I think works really well. I also took a photograph of it and looked at it small on my camera screen to see how it looked. Was it readable? Did the eyes pop out and the mouth pop out? Could I clearly see it was a beast? Did it have different values happening? Sometimes it's much clearer to see those things when you do some kind of reduction, and taking a photo of it and looking at it on your camera screen is a reduction, and you can see the thing working visually a lot better. You can really see the values working. Whereas when I'm just looking at this, it's hard not to just be taken in by all the textures that I'm seeing. So I am going to call this finished. I hope you enjoy your beast. Remember that you have choices for the frames. There are some beautiful ones in that student gallery. You have a lot of leeway in what the background is going to be, but you can see that there's texture pretty much covering this whole thing, except for these leaves in through here, which I think I need to leave because otherwise this would get lost. Remember that you can photograph pieces if you want to, that you're having trouble with, or you're afraid to start putting texture down, or scan that and print it out and work on that printed out piece first before you jump into the creature. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all the finished creatures. It takes time. You might want to put a movie on that you've seen a bazillion times, just kind of to keep you engaged, because a lot of it is partly can be monotonous, like the background, all those drops. Whew, that was a lot. But you get it done, and it looks pretty damn good. So enjoy, looking forward.